Hi, I'm John Redmond from Horizon Hobby. Today we are going to walk you through installation of your Spectrum or JR receiver when using a receiver with a remote receiver. Okay, there's multiple receivers out there. There's the old AR7000, the 6200s, the 6210s, the 8000s, the 8010, 7610, up to the 9000, the JR921, the JR1221, all kinds of receivers. They're there for multiple applications. Of course, you pick the one that works best for you. First trick is to keep the antenna wire straight. I use small bits of airline, pneumatic airline from Robart, Bob Violet Models, either one. We sell the Robart airline. Buy some 1-inch long pieces, it just slips right on, guarantees that wire stays straight all the time. That's a key. Another one is whenever you sit down and put a remote receiver in an airplane, we want to ensure we're at least 3 inches apart. The further the better. Okay, getting them in close starts to mess a bit with the path diversity and the ability. So let's go ahead, 3 inches as a minimum. Remote extensions are available 6, 9, 12, 18, 24, 36 inches. Don't be afraid to grab some of those. Use them to adjust to your fit. The big key, the longest we make is 36 inches. Do not exceed 36 inches on your remote extensions. When placing in the airplane, normally you'll place your receiver in line, fuselage lengthwise, servos plug in, and of course you have we have the 7600 or the 9010 here. You're going to have at least one of the antennas running lengthwise in the model. On the 9010, the JR921, you have one running spanwise. Now, when we go and we inset our remote, we want to make sure it is not the same way. It needs to be 90 degrees at all times. Also, a minimum of 3 inches. When you have multiple remotes, the big key here is to ensure these are 90 degrees apart. My preference is to put them on a 45-degree plane. Now they're not interrupting with any of the path diversity from the other receivers, and you are all on your own plane all the way across. 45 degrees on these, and the others placed in the airplane, 3 inches all the time, at least a minimum. Now we're going to head out to Eli Field. We're going to take a look. I have a big P-47 and my deviator. My son's flying my deviator. I'm flying the P-47. We're going to show you antenna location in those models, as well as flight performance at extreme depths and altitude. And then after that, we're going to show you how to read the data logger to optimize your installation. Okay, we're out here at Eli Field now, and what we're going to do is we're going to sit down and walk you through some of the more advanced remote receiver placement in some upper end aircraft. Here I've got my all-composite Robart P-47, 94-inch wingspan, based on the Nick Zeroli design, weighs about 38 pounds, ready to take off. And over here I have my son's deviator. Now the difference between the two, one, this is a jet, two, this is a prop, but more importantly, this is all composite, this is all balsa and plywood. So what this is here to do is show you is the two different types of aircraft construction we find in the upper end type aircraft. Whether it be a giant scale warbird that's all balsa, or a civilian airplane, or an aerobatic airplane, or a jet that is composite, a warbird that's composite, etc. So you're going to see antenna placement in two different types of material-based airframes and such. What we'll do is we're going to start with the P-47, then we're going to move to the deviator. After that, we're then going to head to the flight line. We're going to put them in the air, and you're going to see some of the distances we fly at with total confidence of guaranteed performance with this system of remote receiver placement. Okay, the P-47 utilizes a JR1222 power-safe receiver, which then uses a minimum of 3 remote receivers or an option of a maximum of 4. Now what I have done, just for clarity, is I have placed the remote receivers on the outside of the fuselage for reference for the video. They are located, of course, inside the airplane in these exact locations. The first one is located here up in the nose against the top surface of the fuselage with the antennas pointing wingspan wise to where they can, you get maximum, when you're coming at it, you have maximum diversity directly in a nose-on pass, etc. This one placed on the top of the fuselage with the antennas in a fuselage length pattern. That gives us a 90-degree orientation from the front antenna, maximum path diversity when we're seen from the side. And we see one on the side here. Understand there is one in the exact same position on the opposite side of the fuselage, yet it has antennas crossing this way, so that these two are also 90 degrees from each other. On the deviator, balsa wood aircraft, setup is very, very similar to the composite aircraft, of the P-47. We start with one up in the nose, and once again, I run wingspan length, and it is actually mounted on a bulkhead sitting in here like this, but to show just here. In the back, I have it located on the top of the fuselage right here, of course upside down, with the antennas lengthwise on the fuselage. You'll notice that what I try and do in both the P-47, the deviator, and I do this in all my models, I try and get the receivers as far up off the ground in any location as possible. The further you can get them off the ground, the better off you are when you're close to the ground on that long distance, low flyby, taking off and landing, etc. You want to have everything as far up off the ground to remove any possibility of any type of ground clutter that might occur. Running, of course, 45 degrees to the center line of the fuselage, receiver on the opposing side, 90 degrees to this receiver, as far up on the fuselage as we can possibly be. This aircraft, just like the P-47, runs a JR-1222 receiver. Similar receivers that run 4 remotes are all the power-safe receivers. We have the JR-922. We also have the Spectrum 9100, the Spectrum 9110, the Spectrum 12,000, and 12,100. All those receivers, power-safe receivers, where they utilize remote receivers throughout the aircraft in a maximum of 4. It's pretty much what we use here. And this shows all the receivers, of course, once again, as far up off the ground as we can possibly get them, maintaining 90 degrees to each other. As we fly the models, you're going to see us fly at distances deep in the pattern, close to the ground, with just optimum certainty in the way our radio system operates. With the antenna locations we have shown you, we're able to ensure when we fly we have ultimate path diversity, no matter what position or where the model is in the flight path. This is a key ingredient to the successful operation of your model. We also fly at extreme altitudes, and as you can see, we sit down and we take the models up high, mainly to show you that we're flying once again very, very deep, very high, very far away, with just the utmost in precision and control from the DSM technology that resides in our radio systems. After a flight, when you're working on a new model, you come back, plug in your data logger, and here we're going to go ahead and we're going to check our numbers. It's real simple. Our first one is A is 059, B is 099, L is 042, and right is 051. Next one is frame losses at 0 and holds, of course, at 0. You want to sit down, read these numbers. They help you optimize your remote receiver placement within the model. And to give you an idea how I set up, A is always my receiver at the front of the model, B is always my receiver at the back of the model, and then L is always a receiver on the left side of the aircraft as if you're sitting in the cockpit, and right on the right side of the aircraft sitting in the cockpit. I set all my models up exactly the same way, so it's easy for me to remember from model to model to model when I see these numbers exactly which receiver is giving me which number. Don't be afraid to move those antennas a little bit here or there to get those numbers down a little bit. As long as we have numbers below 100, 150, we really enjoy that. That is if you're flying DSM-2. You will see numbers that are higher than that in the 2 to 350, 400 range if you're flying DSM-X. Any of that is very acceptable. Okay, we've walked you through multiple installations of the remote receiver systems in your airplane, both composite and balsa plywood type aircraft. You've seen us fly them at extreme distances, close to the ground, high altitudes. We've kind of shown you how to read the data logger. With that, you can, of course, optimize your settings. Do not be afraid to move and adjust those receivers a little after your first couple flights, trying to improve those numbers for the best and optimum performance you can get. Remember, if you ever have any questions, you can find me at editors@HorizonRC.com. We'll see you at the flying field.